Hello, my name is Trisha Fridrich with the L&W team, and I'm here today with 10 ideas with 10x ROI on how you can use PPP and CERTS funding. I believe that we can return to better, and I'm here to give you some ideas on how we can start doing that with this next round of funding. PPP and CERTS funding are around the corner, and the government calls them forgivable loans, but I like to call them free money. Now, the CERTS Act is $2 billion, and it was included in the final December stimulus package. Truth is details are still TBD. I expect to see applications maybe in the next 6 to 8 weeks, and maybe estimated funding will be here in May. But there are still a lot of questions about that. But PPP is here now. Many of you have already applied, and I would expect that you'll see money hitting your bank accounts within the next few weeks. If you haven't applied yet, you can apply by March 31st, and you can get up to 2.5 times your average payroll. Now, if you're getting a second round, it does require that you had a 25% reduction in revenue. But if you are just applying for the first time, you're still eligible. So if you didn't get the first round and you do fall under the qualifications for PPP, take advantage of this opportunity. It is free money. If you don't have the details, this is super high level. So ask your accountant. They're the ones that have the most information. If you don't have one, talk to Tracy Fickett. She works in the bus industry exclusively, and you can reach her at busbooks.co. Now, the kicker with PPP and CERTS that it requires you spend 60% of that money on payroll. To be clear, you can spend the money on whatever you want, but to get full forgiveness, at least 60% needs to be spent on your team. So it's important that you make the most of it. I believe that we can't return to normal. I don't even know what normal is anymore or when it's coming back, but we can return to better, and we must. So I'm hoping that today's presentation can show you 10 different ways that you can use your team to make the most of that CERTS funding. Why do I feel like I am allowed to have this presentation? Because I feel like we can help. The L&W team has more than 40 years of combined operating experience. We're operators turned technology nerds, which means we've walked in your shoes for many years. From finance and strategy to operations and marketing, we have done a lot of it, and we want to be helpful. We feel like we bring together industry experience, a proven leadership from what we did on the advocacy for advocacy over the last 6 months, and just a lot of really random knowledge, including a lot of technology. We've been really engaged in the industry through the pandemic, and I hope that we can help. It's really important with the stimulus money that we get the best ROI that we can. We do not need to carry wheelbarrows full of bricks when we're spending this type of money. I just don't even know how that seems logical at all. So we need to spend smarter, and we need to work smarter, not harder. So today I'm going to talk about 5 categories of topics: strategic finance, smart marketing, organization, cost-effective technology, and leadership. Let's start with the finance. I ran a P&L for more than 10 years. And the thing that I always wanted to figure out is, does the expense equal the value? And if it does, or if the expense is less than the total value, then that's great. But making sure that we're tying expenses to value is really important. And part of that is understanding your metrics. And I realize that I'm going to show you a bunch of spreadsheets right now, and that's going to be a lot to process. But it is really important that we talk about these things. So let's start with metrics that matter. Here, I've taken a number of sort of standard metrics in the industry for a bus company that's making $1 million a year in revenue. And it's really, it's important to note that if you're making $2 million, you can multiply all these numbers by 2. If you're making 10, you can multiply them by 10. It's not meant to represent any one company specifically, but sort of some general metrics so that I can, talk about the pieces that go into this. I have the total expenses for the year on the left, and then the percentage of revenue on the right. And so you can see, if I get my pen here, you can see that this 35%, 350,000 is 35% of 1 million. turn the pen off. Couple of important vocabulary pieces. Variable costs are things like fuel. It's when the more you do something, the more you're spending on them. So if I run 0 buses, as many of you have this year, your fuel costs are very, very low compared to in 2019 when you were running a lot of buses and your fuel charges were much more expensive. Fixed costs are things like insurance or rent, things that no matter how many buses you run, you still owe the same amount of money. And I know this year the insurance companies have made a number of changes to their policies, but typically you have an annual premium. So insurance is a fixed cost, whereas fuel is a variable cost. And I would say that, a lot of the operating payroll, maybe maintenance, operating expense, those are all pieces that are probably variable costs to some extent. Insurance is definitely fixed. Overhead and other payroll is probably also very fixed. In our industry, there's a really interesting trade-off between payroll and other investments, specifically in technology. I'm going to talk about that, but I think it's really important that you understand that there are different ways to do things other than hiring full-time employees. The other metric that I'm going to talk about today in the next slide is utilization. And utilization is the percentage that your bus is being used out of the year. And when you average that across your fleet, you'll find your full utilization. A couple other critical metrics that it's very important that you know, and I hope everyone on this call, when they saw cash burn, they're thinking in their head and they know exactly what their cash burn is for a month. If not, you need to sit down and figure it out. That's the amount of money that you're spending each month that's coming out of your bank account. So if I was looking at this P&L for the year, I still don't know my cash burn because this profit that we show, which obviously these were 2019 metrics, this profit that we show doesn't include things that fall below this line on the income statement. So, your principal payments on your loan, those would come out of here. So when you think about what is the total amount of money that's coming out of your bank account each month, that net is your cash burn each month. So it's pretty easy to look at your statement on the first of the month and on the last of the month and see the difference in your bank account. We hope that it's positive, and for many of us during regular times it is, but currently I know that it is negative for a lot of people, and it's important that you know what that figure is. Your runway is how much time your business has to survive. And so it's the amount of money that you have in the bank divided by your cash burn. Let's say you have $100,000 in the bank and your monthly cash burn is $10,000. That means you have a 10-month runway, 100,000 divided by 10,000. You should know what this number is. Having 10 months of runway is probably a great place to be right now. But if you only have 2 months of runway, you probably should have some serious conversations with yourself and with your family, with your business partners. Now, I showed the 2019 metrics, and I also put together where you could be. And I think it's really interesting to look at some shifts in our business that we could make to change some of our important metrics. My favorite metric that I like to change is this profit metric here at the bottom. Now you can see that I increased revenue by 10% to up to 1.1 million, and our fixed costs stay the same. We're going to pay the same amount of loan interest, $20,000 that you see in both places, but you'll notice that the percentage of our overall revenue, because revenue has gone up, actually went down. So our fixed costs go down. Overhead is still 70 grand, but our percentage goes down. Insurance, still 120 grand, but again, that percentage went down. You can also see that I've chosen to invest in technology, marketing, and advocacy. Advocacy is really important that we continue to invest in this so that we still have the support and the resources to get stimulus money. A number of packages are coming out over the next few weeks and months, and we need to be able to capitalize on the momentum that we've gained through CERTS to continue to get resources that our industry needs. It's also really important that we're marketing right now. Customers don't know that they want to be on buses, and we need to remind them that we're still in business and that we're still safe to do so. I'm going to give you a number of marketing examples, but spending this $55,000 is partly how we get our revenue to be increased. Technology is also a place where you can spend money, and that often offsets payroll. And so here, your operating payroll has actually decreased by 5%. It's gone down by $20,000, and you've increased your technology spend. We also have other payroll that has decreased as well, both in percentage and number. These are obviously examples, but as we're rebuilding our businesses, we may not be able to bring back full-time employees. And so how can we get some of the tasks that they've done, especially things like data entry and filing and administrative things, how can we make sure that those things get taken care of? Now, I know this is a lot, but I've got a couple more spreadsheets for you. And the next thing I want to talk about is, I was mentioning utilization. And it's really important that when you're calculating your pricing, that you think about utilization. When you take utilization and we multiply it by the number of days in the year and number of buses that we have, we get to a figure that I call bus days. And that's the number of days that each bus was out on the road. So maybe bus 1 was out for 200 days, maybe bus 2 was out for 360 days. When you add those numbers together, you get 1,095 in this math. It's important that you've sat down and you've gone through this exercise so that you're charging clients what it actually costs to run your bus. So here, I've taken the expenses from the previous sheet and plugged them into this spreadsheet. For each expense, I've divided the dollars by the bus days to get to this number. This is how much you need to be charging each day that your bus is out for the entire day for net cash flow. Now, I know you're thinking, Trisha, I didn't see net cash flow of $55,000. Well, when you're figuring out pricing and when you're saving money, financial experts will tell you, pay yourself first. You need to factor this into your pricing so that when everything shakes out at the end of the day, there is money left over from the owners. Insurance, $120,000 divided by 1,095 is $109.59. Every day that a bus is on the road, it costs you $109.59 in insurance. And you can see how I've gone through and I've done each of these to figure out what the total is. Now, net cash flow I talked about, loan payments. That wasn't on our P&L before, but it is part of what it costs you to run the business. If you have new buses and are investing in them, you should be able to pay a higher price, or you should be able to charge your clients a higher price. And the amount is $91.32 in this example per day that a bus is out. The other thing is driver payroll. I didn't just take the amount that we had paid to our drivers in 2019. I actually said, okay, we're going to pay our drivers $25 an hour. Don't forget about taxes and benefits. And I've set a standard day at 10 hours. So that is $300 per day for drivers. Now, you're going to have different metrics for your business, but this is an exercise that you can go through, that you can figure out what your daily rate actually should be. And everyone's will be different. And that's okay. It's just important that you're thinking about all the pieces that go into running your business and what you should be charging. If I estimate that I run an average of 300 miles per day, that means my dollars per mile would be $3.91. That's $11.72 divided by 300. And if I take this daily rate and I multiply it by the number of bus days, if that's what I'm charging each day times the number of days that my buses are on the road, then my revenue is almost $1.3 million. Now remember, I took these expenses from my previous slide. Let's go back here. For my previous slide, all these expenses I pulled through, but we were making $1 million. Why is that different? And the difference is because these expenses are not enough to cover after of $1 million and have money left over. And you can see that because we haven't even paid our loan payments yet, and we only have profit of $45,000. So when we incorporate all of these pieces in, we need to be at $1.3 million, which means we need our pricing to be here to get there. Now, I know that is a lot, but you can rewatch this presentation, and I really recommend you do this for your business to figure out what you should be charging. Over the next 5 years, we're going to have the opportunity to grow revenue without growing our fleet. And that's by increasing our utilization. I want to share this with you because I think it's a really interesting way to think about your business. And I hope you will use utilization as a metric that you measure each and every month. Again, this is the same information that I presented on the previous slide. Utilization is 60%, which means our bus days are 1,095, and our expected daily rate is almost $1,200. That leads us to revenue of almost $1.3 million. Growth of almost 30% over the $1 million that I had set up as our standard metric. If we grow our utilization to 65%, then we have buses on the road for 1,186 days. Using our exact same pricing that we had charged our customers when we were using our buses less, our revenue would be almost $1.4 million, which is an 8.3 increase over this number. So if you think about it, if you could work to increase your utilization by 5% each year for the next 4 years, you could take a business that was currently making $1 million, remember, and increase it up to 1.6. Increasing the number of days that your buses are out on the road requires that you're doing a considerable amount of marketing and selling and being very efficient with how your buses are being used. It wouldn't be a small task to increase your utilization from 60 to 75%. But as you can see, it makes a huge difference in your revenue without adding the significant increase of another vehicle. Now, all of this is a lot. So my number one recommendation is that if you aren't great with your financials, if none of this made any sense, and if your eyes glaze over when you stare at spreadsheets, you need to hire someone who is. Over the next 24 months, cash flow will be critical to everyone in this industry. And it's important that you know what your cash burn is, right? What your runway is, what your right pricing should be, and how to make your financials work for you. Even if you're hiring someone part-time to be able to do this, the benefits to you will be immense. So spend some of that PPP and make sure you're investing in the right financial resources. And that's not necessarily an accountant. That's a finance person that ties operations to your dollars. Your accountants help you at tax time and with a number of other resources, especially in this environment. The information that Tracy Fickett has provided on PPP and that I know she's waiting for CERTS information to come out on is incredible. But we need to make sure that we understand how our expenses tie to value. Next thing I'm going to talk about is smart marketing. Many of you may remember this great movie, Field of Dreams. If you build it, they will come. And unfortunately, that's just not true. You can build the greatest bus company in the world, but if you don't market it, you're going to have empty buses. So it's important for marketing that we just do it. Nike is a great example of a very strong brand that spends millions of dollars a year on marketing. When you think about athletes, you think about Nike. And we want people in our communities and in our target markets to say, when they think about buses, I think about calling my bus company. Now, marketing is tough. I'm going to start with your website because I know that 100%, most definitely, without a doubt, everyone's website needs some love. There's only one person in the industry that doesn't need help with their website, and it's Jeff Goldwasser, because Vicky Bowman just helped him redo his, and it looks great. So Jeff, you can take a pause for this. The rest of us, we need our websites to be accurate and bug-free. And I'm going to go through some step-by-step directions on how you can do this well. First, list each page on your website. Enter the number of page views for the last 2 years, and then rank the pages by traffic. You can ignore pages with less than 1% of overall traffic. Those pages aren't being visited by your customers. Step 2 is to start at the top and review each page on mobile. Your customers are more than likely visiting your website on mobile more so than desktop. So we're going to start there. And fix errors and fix missing information and spelling mistakes. If there's a photo missing and there's a random gravatar that's filled in, upload a photo. Delete bad information. Is there anything that says back in 2004, this was the best thing we did? That was 15 years ago, 16 years ago, 17 years ago, if I'm doing math right. And it doesn't need to be there anymore. Now, I'm not saying delete everything on your website, but delete bad information. You need to add the ability to buy online. The bus network is doing this, and it's an amazingly cool technology that will be very helpful for us moving forward. But at the very least, you should be able to fill out a form on your website that says, I'd like to buy a bus, and I'd like to do it on this day. It's critical that our website is working for us 24/7, because we may only have someone in the office or answering the phone from 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. And that means that more than half of the week, we don't have people that are serving our customers. Be sure to add social media links. Usually you can do this in the footer of your website pretty easily. And then look and see, is there any new information that I can add? Just basic stuff. We're not recreating the website. We're not trying to generate a lot more content. Is there is weddings 20% of your business right now? Or, in 2019, weddings aren't even mentioned on your website. Think about what are the things that are a big part of your business that your website doesn't even address. When you're done doing that for each page on mobile, it's time to do it for desktop. Again, these are two separate projects. It's really important that each of them is done well. And once you've fixed most of the things on mobile, doing it on desktop is probably very easy. A couple tips. I hate paper in all instances except this one. You can actually print out your web pages onto paper, which means you can sit at your dining room table to use a pen and mark them up. It makes it a little bit easier so that when you're actually on WordPress or making updates, you can do that a little bit easier. The other thing is that sometimes it's hard to switch back and forth between your mobile device and your browser to actually update the site. And so if you're on Chrome or Safari, you can hit, actually, I don't know if this works on Mac, but if you're on Chrome, you can hit F12, and then it allows you to pick the size of your screen. And you can see what your website looks like on a number of different devices without actually being on your mobile phone. So that's kind of nice. If you don't have analytics for your site, Google Analytics is free. And you do need to install it right away because it only captures information moving forward. But it allows you to see where your website browsers are coming from, how much time they spent on your site, and which of your pages are the most trafficked. So that's a piece that's very interesting when you start thinking about spending time or resources on your website. But if you go through these 3 steps with your staff that are paid by PPP dollars, it'll be a great step in the right direction for your website. Because I know many of us have not been cleaning up our website as Mary Poppins would like. So make sure you fix the bugs where your customers first find you, which is most often your website. Next, think about, does your website really do what you want it to do? And I read this book called Rocket Surgery Made Easy a few months ago, and it talked about having a Zoom focus group review of your website. This will take you probably a total of an hour with a non-employee, and you can schedule it for a time that's convenient. You want the person that's doing the focus group, just one person, to be in your target market, but not a current customer. You should know maybe a little about your business, but not a lot. And what you do is you set up a Zoom call and they share their screen and they start on your website and they talk through what they're thinking as they're going through your website. You can record it and listen back to it later, and you can watch their face and reactions and see where they're going to find information on your website. You'll learn a lot about how your customers are engaging with your page online when no one's looking, and see if there's anything major that you need to address. You don't want to talk a lot. You want to ask a number of questions. When they're on your homepage, ask, what do you think this company does? Where would you click for information about something that your company does? Show me how you would book a bus for a wedding or anything else. What do you want your customers to do? It's best if you sit down and have these questions written out in advance. You probably only need 5 or 10, and then prompt them through the questions until they get to the end of whatever task you're wanting them to do. Ask them things like, what would be your next step? Or what do you want to do now? This hour session will show you a lot about how your customers are engaging with your website online. And you don't usually have the opportunity to be peering over their shoulder, but here you will. it's important that you listen, that you learn, and you rewatch the recording, because you want your website to be working for you 24/7. And so if we have the ability to fix some minor things that would make a big impact, that can make a big difference right now. Now, I know some of you are thinking, oh, my website, I just need a new website. You probably don't need a new website. And there's a graphic from the Office Space guy. And a new site is not 3 to 6 weeks. It's probably not even 3 to 6 months. If you really need a new site, I want you to understand the steps 1 through 97 are content. It's not actually about your website. What's your value proposition? What information do you have on your website? Do you have the right photos and blog posts and content? What are all of those pieces that you need to pull together before you can even think about design or development? When you get to design, find a few websites you like. Simple is best. And then my recommendation is to hire someone to develop it. They will build it significantly faster and significantly better than if you tried to do it in-house. And frankly, step 100 is to retire, because most of the time you will have gray hair and be an old lady by the time you finish the website. At least that was the case the last time I'd redid a website. It is very time consuming and is very difficult. And I think right now we probably have other things that are higher priority. Now, if you really need a new website, there are definitely, you can definitely do that. Just understand that it's going to take a lot of bandwidth. So if your company is in an okay position, then a new website might be a good idea, but definitely understand what's involved before you get started. Social media, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. These are critically important channels for us right now. I'm going to give you some step-by-step directions from when I used to manage a page that had 30,000 likes on Facebook. We started this page back when we were posting 3 to 4 times a day on Facebook. And so we needed a ton of content and a process that made sense. And so this is the process that we used to help grow our following from 0 to more than 30,000. The first thing that you need is photos. Now, how do you get all of these photos? I know that photos is the first thing on my list to do, because when we were trying to post 3 to 4 times a day on Facebook, the process was like this. Okay, I need a photo. Let's go find something interesting. Okay, I have a photo. Now I need to write something about it. Now I need to post it. Now I need to wait 20 minutes, and now I need to start this over again. Okay, we have to post it again. Okay, I have to go find it. I mean, it's just not an efficient process. But I spent 2 days and I walked around my city and I got 15,000 photos. I had a lot of SD cards that I just kept plugging into the camera. Now you can send out a bus and a cell phone around your city, around your community. You could even make it an overnight trip. But anywhere that you can take interesting photos for you to put in a collection that you can use forever. Think about quantity over quality. You need lots and lots of photos. These are not photos that you're going to use in a magazine. These are not photos that you're going to put on a billboard. Those require very specific technology things, really nice cameras. You can shoot most of these with a cell phone. When you get back from taking these photos, organize them by category, whatever category makes sense for you. We organize them by geography. So when I wanted to post a picture by the lake, I could go to the lake and I had a bunch of lake photos. And truthfully, you don't need 15,000. We took 15,000 in 2 days, and those photos lasted us for the next 5 years. If you go out and take 500 or 1,000 photos in a week, you'll be able to use those for the rest of this year and probably most of next year. Be aware that the weather matters, so you'll want to make sure that you go out on sort of an average to nice day. You also need to think about what is your voice on social media. If your company was a person, what would she sound like? What would she talk about? That's the best way for you to come up with content. If your company is if you run pirate charters, then your Facebook profile might need to be a pirate. But it's not going to make any sense if you have a chauffeur service or corporate shuttle service to have a pirate on your Facebook page. So think about that and make sure that The voice that you're using on social media reflects your business. You also need to commit. My commitment when we were running our pages after Facebook ads got implemented was 1 post per day and responding to comments. That was it. That was the entire commitment that we've made. And you can do this by pre-scheduling your posts. Hootsuite is a platform that's free, and Facebook allows you to schedule your pages in advance, your posts in advance. So you can sit down one day with your collection of photos and you can make all your posts for the week or for the month. And if something comes up that you want to post about in addition, you can always, move that for the day. But you can make the commitment to spend some time with social media and have it, play out over the next week or two. The other thing is Facebook it is supposedly free. It works significantly better if you put some ad spend behind it. It doesn't have to be a lot. I recommend $5 per post unless you have something specific that you're trying to get the word out on. And if you don't have a lot of money to spend, start boosting posts that perform well. If you usually get 2 likes on a photo and now you have 8, that's a post that's performing well. So put $5 behind it. You can also boost all of your posts, which is a really easy way to just keep an ad campaign going. You can also look at targeted Facebook ads. Now, if you put together photos, voice, commitment, and probably most importantly, some ad spend, you can be like Jack Kaufman at Timmy's Tours and grow their Facebook page following in a pandemic to more than 10,000 followers. That will pay off for him in the future significantly. So success on social media is 1 post per day using your brand voice plus $5. It's as simple as that. It's a very straightforward formula. Get engaged. And no, I do not mean this kind of engaged. Talking about getting involved in your businesses, getting involved in associations. UMA and ABA are great national associations. We also have state and regional associations. What are you wanting to get from them? What are you looking to them for? Ask them for things that you need. When you think about whether you get involved in a lot of associations or just, 1 or 2 very actively, but those relationships and that network will benefit you significantly as you're navigating a very uncertain future. And be sure to look for value. You do vote with your membership, and if your associations aren't providing you with value, maybe you should spend those dollars somewhere else. But many associations are providing significant resources during this time. I know we're members of the Tennessee Motorcoach Association, as well as the Greater New Jersey Motorcoach Association, and Patty Cowley from New Jersey and Pennsylvania does a great job of informing her members of things that are going on. Also, get involved in the community. I know a number of people are starting up mobile vaccine clinics. I just saw Yankee Line had announced theirs today, but I've also seen food drives. Clarence Cox down in Georgia has done a number of amazing things with his buses over the pandemic. And I know that Scott Riccio up at Northeast, up in Maine, not only was instrumental in partnering with Susan Collins for the CERTS Act, but also having some really great community events with food drives and toy drives. Something heartwarming can be really amazing for your team to participate in and for your community. And don't forget to take photos and post them and share that story with your local news outlet or your Facebook page. Getting involved can be the difference of what people think about when they think about bus companies moving forward. Additionally, get engaged in advocacy. I know I sound like Bob Barker. I'm glad I don't look like Bob Barker yet, but I'm glad that I sound like Bob Barker when he finished every single Price is Right show by saying, don't forget to get your pet spayed or neutered. You need to reach out to your Congress people. You need to build relationships with them and talk to them about what's happening in your business so that they understand how devastated our industry has been. Get involved in your community. It is marketing and it is good for you. The next thing that has to do with marketing is pivoting. When life hands you lemons, maybe you make lemonade. There's lots of ways that you can think about pivoting your business. We helped a company pivot during the pandemic. Their business had gone completely to zero. And at the end of last year, they were acquired after making $3 million of revenue on Shopify this year. Is there anything that you could sell online? Shopify is a great platform if you are. But there are other things that are available to our industry that are very bus specific. There's two pieces of helpful legislation. One is working with transit via the 5311F rule. And you can use charter. There's a specific amount of funding that can be used for scheduled line runs that private operators can run. But you have to identify unmet needs. So looking for places that don't have scheduled service between two, sometimes rural places. Now, all of that sounds really complicated. And so the best thing you can do is to show up to your monthly transit meeting or to reach out to your state DOT. And I know that Mark Saipersky with On Your Mark Transportation has done a lot of this over the years. So he's a great resource. And there's a national conference back in South Carolina in October that would be a great resource as well. The other thing that you can do to both protect your business and gain additional revenue is the charter registration. I know we're up over 300 registrants. From a few weeks ago, we only had 216. But when someone when someone requests a charter from transit, they have to put that out to the people who have registered in their area. So it's a great lead generator, but it also protects you from not knowing about the business. And there's a lot of work that transit is doing that people in our industry could be doing as well. So be sure you register for that so you can get notified. And when they reach out to you, be sure that you're following up. So maybe when life hands you lemons, you should try something new. We can throw a lot of spaghetti at the wall and we can see what sticks. A number of people have pivoted their business either slightly or completely over the last 11 months and have been very successful doing it. The next thing I want to talk about is organization. I know that in 2019, many of our desks looked like this. I hope that all of our desks look like this now because we've had more than enough time to do all the filing that we need, all the organizing, and all the cleaning. And one of the things that I remember most is that when someone comes into your business and they don't know much about you or what you're doing, when your desk looks like this, they don't have a lot of confidence in what you're doing. So make it a point to stay organized, because if it looks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, as the saying goes, it's probably a duck. And this does not look like the impression that you want to give to your staff or to customers or clients as they're thinking about, what it is that you do. This isn't one of my tips, but clean your desk. Take some time, organize your desk, clean up your office. These are things that we can do that will allow us to move forward more productively. And who knows what you might find in there? Maybe $20. One of my tips is digital paperwork, though. It's really important that we're thinking about the value of what we get from the time that we spend. And I think DQ Files is a place where we spend a lot of time. It's obviously critical to our business, but there are easier ways to do this. You can use an electronic tracking platform. And, instead of uploading all of your drivers from 2019, upload the ones who are working for you now. And then as drivers return, upload their file. This doesn't have to be a big project. It can be something that you just start with right now. If you have 2 drivers working for you and you used to have 10, you don't need to spend the entire time uploading all 10 files. Start with 2. And as you bring back those additional drivers, make a commitment to upload their files. It's important to recognize that scanning documents is not the same thing as using an electronic tracking platform. If you use an electronic tracking platform like the one the L&W team has, or great partners like Tom Holden over at Transportation Advisors, if you use platforms like that, the system notifies you when documents are expiring. And that's important because we don't have the bandwidth that we used to have. And we still have to have our files be complete and up to date and all the things that FMCSA requires that we do. So it's really important that we think about, is it going to take me 20 hours this month to make sure that my files are up to date and every month? Or can I use an electronic tracking platform or a partner like Tom to handle that for me? There's only so much time in the day that you have, and where do you make the most of it? We want to make sure that our compliance, a critical part of our business and a lot of work, is done well and done right. And if this is what your office looks like, then start using electronic tracking right now. Technology. It doesn't have to be complicated. I was going to put a fancy quote in here from someone way smarter than me, but then I realized it doesn't have to be complicated. Technology often feels like this crazy monster that I don't know what to do with, and it doesn't make any sense, and it seems like it seems more complicated. The truth is that technology, when used well, simplifies your life. And this is a big part of what we do with the L&W team. I want to talk about technology and how much it really costs to drive home a point that I mentioned I was going to bring up with when I was talking about financials. When 10 hourly employees spend 15 minutes per shift at $30 an hour, it costs you $20,000 per year, almost $18,750. Now, first thing, $30 an hour. I don't pay anyone $30 an hour. I guarantee you, between taxes and benefits, your hourly wage for your drivers is at, or potentially should be, close to $30 an hour. And as we are experiencing the driver shortage that we may have to increase some of those wages. You should always add 20% to the hourly rate when you're calculating how much an actual employee costs you. Someone asked me the other day, well, how do you save 15 minutes per shift? And I said to them, your drivers spend 15 minutes per shift in the time it takes them to walk to the office, to pick up the paper, to walk to their bus, forget a pen, walk back to the office, walk back to the bus, inspect the bus, walk back to the office. All of that walking around time is easily 15 minutes per shift. And when you do things like make paperwork digital so that they're simply using their phone to complete that information and not doing all that walking around, it easily saves you that $20,000 per year. Well, what about for my salaried employees? I'm not paying them hourly. It's even more impressive when managers when you figure out what managers are doing. If managers are spending 3.5 hours per week on paperwork, which would have been a dream when I was managing paperwork, it costs them a month of productivity. That means if you put all of those times that they were managing paperwork back to back during business hours, the entire month of January would be spent on paperwork. Now, I don't know about you, I get a lot done in a month, and I would like to do that on something other than paperwork. And so think about how you're spending your time right now. A lot of you are managing parts of the business that you haven't ever had to manage before. And when you can have technology do those things for you, it opens your managers up to do things that are far more valuable. Being strategic, managing employees, having conversations. Those are things that robots can't do, but robots are very good at pushing paperwork around. Try this. This is how I think about what the cost of technology is. Track the time that you spend doing something. Evaluate the cost for it to be done another way. Figure out what the hourly rate is there. And then ask yourself, do you value your time more than that? Probably 5 years ago, I did this with house cleaning. This is a silly example. It took me 5 hours on Saturday and 5 hours on Sunday to fully clean my house. Now, most of that is because I get distracted and I'm not paying attention and I don't have the right cleaning stuff, but 5 hours on Saturday, 5 hours on Sunday. It cost me $140 to hire house cleaners to come in once a month and clean the house, which means I am paying myself $14 per hour to clean my house. Do I value my time more than that? On the weekends? Absolutely yes. I would much rather have my 10 hours on the weekend back. That's the sort of things that you can be thinking about as you're thinking about what is the value of what I'm doing. If you can have robots do your paperwork for $14 an hour and you can have conversations or think strategically about your business, I would hope that the value of that would be much higher. So that's just an example as you're thinking about what you're spending your time doing and what technology can do for you, how you can think about it. I also want to talk about how technology is not expensive. And I know this is another spreadsheet. I promise it's not going to be awful, but I want to walk through what we'll go through on a hiring process over the next year. So, March 2021 is right around the corner, and we are going to get PPP funding. And so we're going to hire 2 people back, probably part-time. We need some different skill sets. And so, we're going to hire people at, say, 60%, but we need 2 people, which it would be great if we could just hire 1 full-time, but, these 2 people have different skills. So we're bringing in 2 people at $2,500 a month. So it's a total expense of $5,000. And that works out great for, 3 months, but then they hit 90 days and now we have to pay for benefits. So now that $2,500 turns into $3,000, that's $6,000 a month, which is great. But come August, we need another skill set. And so we're going to bring on someone else for $2,500. Now we're spending $8,500 a month. And we're still probably, depending on the size of your business, it's still possible that you still are pulling your hair out, doing a lot of things that you weren't doing in 2019. But that continues on and works out great for a little while. But then, that third employee hits 90 days, got to pay benefits on that. And then it's the holidays. And maybe $500 per employee seems like a high company bonus. But there's all kinds of things that you have to spend money on for employees throughout the year. Maybe it's a new computer. Maybe it's a desk. Maybe it's, pens and pencils. I don't know. But you spend money on employees when you have them around. Well, then it's January, and unfortunately, we need to let one of the employees go. So now we're back down to $6,000 for our 2 employees. Well, then it's March 2022, and now they've been working here a year, so we need to give them a raise. So over the course of 13 months, you've spent $91,500 on staff. Now let's compare that to what you would do if you had technology in place. You hire 1 person, and you invest $500 a month in technology. Total spending, $3,000. You continue on, and when it comes time to buy health insurance, you only have to buy health insurance for 1 person, and you get, instead of being at $6,000, you're now at $3,500. Again, you continue on down the path. When it comes time to fill another skill set, you invest in technology instead of in people. And you continue on, and the story remains the same, but at the end of the year, you've only spent $49,000. Now, normally, replacing people with technology would be very difficult. But right now, we don't have those staff in place. And so we can expand at a rate that makes sense for our business. Going from no employees to a full-time employee is a big jump in expense, and you may not be ready for that on your revenue side. And so investing in small pieces of technology to ensure that you don't go crazy as a business owner and are able to get all your work done is huge. And at the end of the day, you've saved $44,000 in expense. Now, I work in technology, and if I told you that you spent $10,000 on technology, most of you would say, that's very expensive. It's not the $10,000 expensive. It's the $91,500 that's expensive. And that's what you should be thinking about when you think about technology. For every $1 million in revenue, I believe that you should be spending $25,000 on technology. And I think most people think that is an insane ratio. But if you understood how technology can help you decrease payroll, you'd understand that this is not an increase in expenses. You're currently spending over $100,000 to do the same thing. And this can be, saving time in data entry. This can be a new tool in the shop that helps you diagnose maintenance issues to fix the problem right the first time. This can be virtual software that allows your employees to work from home so that you have less office space. Think about how you can increase your spending on technology to decrease your expenses across the board. There's lots of ways to do this, and there's lots of technology that's not complicated that can help you simplify. So number 8 is to work hard to get to this ratio. And I would challenge you to get there in the next 6 months because it'll make a world of difference as your business starts to scale and get larger. because the value of technology as you make more revenue becomes more and more valuable. Leadership. Who's in charge here? Guess what? It's you. Leadership is a critical part of getting through the tough times. And so the last few tips that I have are about you and what you do with your team. Tough love is an important part of getting through these scary times. And so you need to be sure that you're surrounding yourself with people who will be honest with you and give you that tough love feedback. And, like this bird, kick you out of the tree when you need to get kicked out of the tree. There's very little benefit right now to people who say yes to everything and agree with you. You want to have that discourse. It will help you and it will challenge you. And that means, bringing back the right employees who are invested in your business and who, care deeply about what it is that you do and who believe in your mission. It's also about having honest friends and maybe finding mentors and advisors. Business coaches and Spader groups are really valuable right now because when you have people that you can have those tough conversations with, you often find solutions. Help. Asking for help is really, really important. And when I was putting together this slide, what I heard in my head was the Beatles. I need somebody. I think we should all think about what we are really good at, because everyone that's listening here is really good at something. But there's also things that we're not really good at. Where do you need help? Very few of us fill up our days with our full-time jobs. So can one of our staff be helpful for one of your friends and one of their staff be helpful for you? If I had a great marketing person, could I let my friend borrow them while I borrow their finance person? That would probably be really great and help put our industry back to work in ways that make a lot of sense. Things are not going to get better by ignoring problems and pretending that they go away. But we can ask for help, and we can ask our friends for help or ask the industry. I know every vendor that I've talked to has been working their butt off for the last year to help the industry recover because we are all in this together. But people don't know how to help you unless you start talking about your business. You start asking for help. You start offering help like I am today, and to just be helpful. There's almost nothing I'm better at than crafting a P&L and finding finances that make sense for businesses. I spent 10 years doing it. And that is a gift. It's something that I'm very good at. Implementing technology, finding solutions that make sense for your business, that actually make running your business feel smooth and frankly, really magical. Those are things I'm really good at. There are things that I'm not really good at where I could use a lot of help. All of us are in this position. And when we start talking about it, we can help each other. The last thing is to be the change. This is a statue of Socrates. And one of my friends and I would have dinner and we'd talk about, life and work and jobs and what we wanted. And what came out of them was a lot of, whys and hows and a lot of really interesting conversations. And it's really important that you're having those either conversations or, like Socrates sitting and, staring out at the wild abyss to figure out, what are you doing as a leader to push for change in your business? Where are you investing your time and your money to return to better? I like to think about what's on my wish list and then how do I make it happen? And if you're having those conversations and you're understanding what you really, really want from your business and then decide to make it happen, you can create change. Because as a business owner and as a business leader, it's really up to you to dream the big dreams and then make the decisions that change how your business runs. And, this past year was not a great year for business, but we have an opportunity ahead of us to make the changes that we need to. And through PPP funding and CERTS funding, we have dollars that we can put into payroll to make the changes that'll have a 10x return on our business. I talked about a lot of things and I went through it very quickly. And so we are offering, starting in 2 weeks, 6 webinars where we'll deep dive to each of these topics. On the 15th of February, we'll talk about the website. On the 17th, Wednesday, talk about getting involved with advocacy. For all you people that don't understand spreadsheets, and for you spreadsheet nerds, Friday we'll talk about financials. The following week we have social media, technology, and then a leadership webinar. We're offering these free of charge to everyone. We want to be helpful, and we want to see you spend your PPP and your CERTS money and get a 10x return on the dollars that you spend and on the time that you invest in thinking about your business. My name's Trisha. I'm with the L&W team. I put my cell phone and my email up on the screen, and I encourage you to reach out and to join us for our webinars. It's been a rough year, but we must return to better. And it's time that we make the changes that we really need in our business to return to better and to be successful, because buses move millions and millions of people each year, and they will again. I want to leave you with one final tidbit. And that is just that you have to start somewhere. We're not going to be able to solve all the problems in one day or 1 week or one webinar. But if you start somewhere and start making changes and start improving processes, your business will be very different 1 year from now. You just have to start. Thank you so much for tuning in.